There we go. Okay. So for this demo, we're going to use the Braun coffee maker. And you can see when you bring something into SolidWorks, or you know what? I want to do two things. Let me open up SolidWorks here quickly. So when you bring in a model from SolidWorks, you can see that it opens up with a default background and a default gray, whatever.
Hey Shannon, are you sharing your screen right now?
Sure I am. Can't you see it? There we go. So when you bring it, I got multiple things open here. When you bring in your model from Keyshot, it looks similar to what you had in SolidWorks. It's just maybe a little bit prettier. But you have your basic, your model window screen. Over here you have what's called your models. You've got your material tab, colors tab, your textures, which basically you apply to your materials, your environments. Think about this as a digital studio or a digital outdoors. So in the bottom there, you can kind of see like an apartment studio with lighting in that. If I click on that, it basically creates a environment as if I had dropped my coffee maker in there. And that's how it's going to light it up. So environments is all about your lighting. Then you can also do back plates. And then there are some preset base models. And there's some models that you can also download from Keyshot. Now over on the right hand side, so this is what you add to the scene. Over on your right hand side is everything that is in your environment. So your scene is basically what is the object that is in there and what are your cameras. So you can kind of see here that what I did is I brought in my Braun coffee maker, and it says Braun coffee maker. I can hide it, turn it on, and it works as a top-down level. So here it's the Braun coffee maker, and then here are all the individual components. If I hover over it, it shows me an image. Now, when doing solid body modeling, if we go back to the SolidWorks model of the Braun coffee maker, I did this as a solid body model. And there are, even though there's names associated to parts in here, those names will not transfer over into Keyshot. If I bring all those parts into an assembly, then they'll transfer over. Let me see if I can do this file. Oh shoot, I deleted it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you recording this one?
Yep, I am.
Thank you.
So let me see if I can find something here that I can open that will be an assembly. You know what? Let me just download the Lego Man. Bear with me for 1 second. So what I want to show is when you create things as an assembly, this is an advantage of dragging things into an assembly. Where's Benjamin's stuff? Okay, let me just find something different here. That's not what I want. That's not going to get what I want. You're going to hear my dog spaz out because it has to be, it has attitude for any time a dog walks by. There we go. Let's open that up. So, oh, and now it's going to crap out. Okay, never mind. Basically, trust me, if this was an assembly, all the names would come in. So, but one way to work around that is if you want to, you know, have things and you can apply materials to them in SolidWorks. So if I come in and I select this part and I'm going to come over under appearances and we're just going to make that part, give it a color. Oh, we'll go with the body, not the part. We'll give it a color. And let's assume that everything that we want to be stainless steel, we're going to make that exact same color. So this is kind of, you can do a little bit of prep work if you don't want to bring it into an assembly. So I'm just going to drag and drop it onto the different bodies that I'm going to assume that I want to be stainless steel or the same material. And then if I go and I update Keyshot, you'll see that those parts come in that color. And then at the same time, if I come over here under material that's in the scene, you'll see that that color is there. And what I can then use that as the start of my shader. So let's say those are going to be stainless steel eventually. I know that that's the color. All those things selected are going to be stainless steel. So let's start with what I'm looking for from you guys for this first rendering. So I want to keep it really simple. And I want you guys to have some fun so you can play and experiment, but we're not going to dive too deep into getting really fancy textures and that. At the base limit, what I want you guys to do is just apply some of the standard shaders. If you want to play a little bit beyond that, that's up to you. But I also want to show you quickly what can happen with just a quick, simple rendering. So what we're going to do to start with is we're going to look at our environment. And that allows us to determine what our lighting environment is. So right now we're saying our environment background is whatever the lighting environment is. So if I come in and I change my environment and we make it the office space, you see that it places the office space into the back there. Later on, we'll get into how we do this to place your model into a scene, but this is going to determine what is reflecting off of this part. So you can kind of see how each one of these environments I bring up changes the lighting on the object. So this is a really quick, simple way to get controlled lighting with a drag and drop approach. You can see that we have interior options, we can do outdoor options, and sometimes it's a matter of clicking through to find the one that you feel gives you the best lighting. This all changes once you start adding reflections in that as well. So, because if we look at that, there's a lone coffee maker sitting in space or sitting on the lawn. There also are studios. So 3-point lighting. And we'll, again, later on, we'll dive deeper into lighting in that. This is a general overview. One thing that I would recommend is get a beginner's guide to product photography, because everything that you do in Keyshot is based on what a photographer would do in real life. Or have one of the photography students sit over your shoulder and say, hey, how would you light this? What would you do? Because then you can duplicate that in here. So you can see we've got some basic ones, and they're all going to affect the lighting differently. But now see how the background matches what that environment is. So for right now, if we don't want that, we can go under environment, and we're going to say the background is going to be a color. And I'll show you how to change that color later, but we can stick with just plain white for now. Now we're going to come over and we're going to go to materials. And you can see in this drag down window that you've got a whole bunch of preset materials. These are basically materials that have already been created for you. They're good enough for what we need right now, and as we go along, they're a good foundation to start with and to build upon. So what you basically do is you can select a material, and let's just go with plastic for almost all of this stuff. So we're going to look at it, and that's something else. When you're doing your rendering, you should always have reference material in front of you. So you guys have pictures of everything that you've modeled up, so you want to have that reference material in front of you. So I know that most of this plastic is a hard, shiny plastic. It's ABS. So we're going to come in, and I'm going to look under plastic. I'm going to find the hard plastic. I'm going to find shiny, and I'm going to drop a shader on there. Now, if I drag the shader onto here, it's going to assign it to every object that doesn't already have a shader assigned. Now, this is where it is of value to have some of those colors already added, because I can come in and drag this and just select that shader, that's the purple, and then it automatically changes it. The next way is for me to come on, by hitting the control button. Why is it doing that? I don't want that. Come on. I'm having... There we go. I can select the objects, and what I'm doing is I'm hitting Control and left clicking that I want to be those colors, and you can see them highlighted up in my menu tree over here. Once I have them selected, I can then just drag and drop it onto one of them, and it'll make all those parts that color. And you can see that it pops down in here now. So if I want to keep adding it, it highlights over here. So instead of dragging it onto here, I drag it up to here, and it highlights that. Now you can see that I don't necessarily have a whole lot of reflectivity in this. I'm not looking for that yet. What I'm looking for is, before I set up my lights, I want my materials on there. That's the approach that I like to do. So I bring in the model, and then I assign my materials. So you can also see if this is going to be stainless steel or chrome. You can come down to your metals, go with chrome, and there's a whole bunch of different ones. Click on the plus side, and you can find basic ones, polished chrome, rough chrome, mesh, textured. So for this, we're just going to go with the chrome polished. I'm going to drag and drop it over on the purple. And you can kind of see it's starting to look like something, but it's that standard flat because there's nothing for it to reflect off of. This pot is glass, so I'm going to come and I'm just going to toss on a simple glass material. Whoop. So I just want to click on that and toss it on there. You saw what I did where I accidentally tossed it on the handle. And then you can kind of come in and say, okay, well, I want these ones all to be black. So we're going to go back to plastic. And maybe these are going to have a slight texture to them. So what I can do is I can come back to my plastic. So they're still going to be hard, but this time I'm going to make them slightly textured. So this is my default shader. So let me select each one of those items, drag and drop. Now I'm getting the basic shape, the basic look of it down. Sure, we'll leave that black. That's not necessarily something that I wanted. So I've already got this shader in here. If I expect these all to be the same, then I just want to take the shader I've already got, drag it and drop it. Okay, so once you've added all your different materials, and again, these are good starter materials, you can come and go next to your materials, and that's going to show up all the materials you have. And if I select the shader, double click on it, it pulls up all the design elements for changing and modifying that shader. So right off the bat, diffuse, and if you hover over it, it explains to what it is. And I really suggest that you guys hover over them and get the words or get the understanding of what each one does, because it'll help you in tutorials. So for diffuse, it's that. It's what the base color is going to be. Come on. Color or texture that defines the diffuse reflections or simple material color. So again, color is what is reflected back to you. So what that means is I can come in and I can click on the color, and this is where it starts mimicking a lot of other softwares. You know, I click on the color and I can come in and I can adjust it and get the different colors. I can also pick an eyedropper, and this is what's really nice about this. Let me bring this over here. We're going to type Braun Coffee Maker. We'll go to images because everybody loves doing this. Plus it's because it's an iconic design. And we can come in and say, oh, well, that's the orange we want. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select this. I'm going to pop that up. Oh, hold on. I can come over here and say, okay, that's the color I want to pick. So you can use anything on your screen. Then we're going to say, okay, excellent. So let's all just remember that picture there. Really nice rendering, right? Looks good. So what we can then do, where'd you guys go? There we go. Is we've got kind of our base materials in there and it's set up. What we can also do is specular is the intensity of the light being reflected back. So you can kind of see here, we've got that white light. We can come in and we can adjust that. So what that does is it changes. So imagine that you have a white light in the room. The reflections you see back are going to be white. if you want to adjust that, and let's say you want to pretend like there's a red light, then that's what's going to be the reflection that's coming back at you from a highlight standpoint. So we're going to go with a white. We'll close out that. Now what we've got next is reflectivity. And that's exactly that. How shiny is your object? You know, so there's extremely shiny, but you can see it starts getting washed out. Extremely dull. And refractive index means how much does it refract light. You can increase roughness. So here, by increasing the roughness, it's almost like giving it a light texture. More of a satin look. So here's extremely shiny, add a little bit of roughness. Now you're getting kind of a more diffuse lighting, a little bit more, I'll call it subtle. And really, so these are the things that when you're drinking a coffee or having a cocktail in the evening, I pull up a rendering of somebody's and then I just go through and I start sliding toggles. And it's like, oh, what does that do? Oh, what does that do? And then unfortunately what I usually come back is and I read what it does. So and bear with me because I now have two dogs under my legs who are going to get mad at each other. So for this, we're just going to kind of leave it kind of shiny for now and at the midpoint of this. So this was the base for the plastic because it's shiny. There's not really much else we want to do with it. Now, if we go down to the hard plastic and let's zoom in, we picked one that has a texture on it. So are you guys able to read the texture there or no?
Travis, I think my computer is not letting me go into like this like semi-rendered view.
Oh, okay. Let's take a second here. Share your screen. Can you share your screen? Do you know how to share your screen? Did I lose you? We lost them?
Oh, I'm still here.
You know what? Stay on after class and we'll figure that out, okay?
I can I got it here. If you want to see it.
Let's, you know what, Pietro?
You want to do it after class?
Yeah, let's just do it after class.
Okay.
So basically what it is now, so we've got a hard texture. So we've still got black, we've still got specular, we've still got refractive or reflections, but now under here, under textures, we can add a bump map. So exactly that, we want something to be bumped on it. So I can come in, and you can see right now what it is it's a very fine light bump. And I can click on that and I can say, you know what, let's make this a big bump. Oops, that's way too big. And you can see here, it's almost like a hammered steel. So it comes back in and you can adjust it to what you want. How fine do you want it? Do any of you have access to Mold Tech books? Okay, remind me next class we'll talk about Mold Tech. That is the industry standard on how to determine a texture for your part. And it's also awesome because when you do a sketch, you can just sketch over it and it's going to give you that texture. So for this, we want a really, really fine texture. So we're going to go to a 0.01. And again, sometimes you have to play with that. And it's also start looking at things. Start looking at things around your house and seeing what there is on there. So now you can see we've kind of dumped some base things in here. Well, the next is to play with your lighting. So here, we've got it looking okay. We've got our materials applied. You know, we want to get what our lighting, our imagery looks like. So let's just go in here. We're going to go lighting. And we're going to start with a basic product lighting. And you can kind of see it doesn't do much, but it increases a couple of the lights from the top. And this is where we want to go back to our environment and start looking at, well, what's going to give us our lighting that we want, that we feel is dramatic. And so much about lighting and reflections, because now you can kind of see, if I come in here, you're going to start seeing those reflections in the glass. Because if you don't have reflections in glass, it looks flat. If you don't have the right thickness to your glass, it looks flat. So sometimes it's a matter of understanding what kind of lighting do you want, what environment it's going to be in. For this, and this is where I say getting to understand what photography is about. If I look at this rendering, basically I know that this has been rendered with light panels that are at the level. There's not really anything above it, but it's just, if your product's sitting here, there's light panels that go around it, and that's what's going to achieve that effect, and then you just have them in different positions. So with that said, I know, and I can come in here and just go through and say, okay, where are they? Panels, side panels. We're going to go with 3. So now we're going to put that in there. And now you can kind of start seeing that we're getting that same look. The difference is our materials are not nearly as shiny. So the question is that our material or is that our lighting? So if you remember, we turned the roughness down. So now let's get that to be a little bit brighter. And at the same time, let's get our product color to be a little bit more orange. That orange coloring is going to make it pop. You know, it's going to get a little bit closer to that. So there you can see that we're starting to get a little bit more. Now, you can also see that we're getting a little bit more definition in the material. What you can also do is when you come to the environment, play with this area here. These are called HDRIs. So if these are panels, I can click on the dot and see as I move that, it's like moving the panel around the object. I can raise it up. I can lower it down. I can adjust the brightness. And do all that. So that's one of those things, and you can even see here on the shadows, because a shadow is never truly black. A shadow is the reflection of whatever material is bouncing off the floor. Now, if it's dark under there, then there's void of all light. But if the light is hitting this orange and then bouncing down, then you're going to get some of that orangeness reflecting in its shadows. But here you can see, basically by just dragging and dropping the shaders, we got what we wanted. Now, with a little bit of time spent, let me see if I can find this quickly, because we don't have much time left. Let's go to... So you can see here with a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of adjustment, you can get a little bit better. But you can still see in a very quick drag and drop approach, you can get a decent rendering. Now, in order to render that out, you're going to come up here, click render, and you're going to pull up the render menu. And here what we've got is our output. And what the output is what is your file name? Where do you want it to go? By default, it automatically creates the folder that is in your documents drive, Keyshot, render, which is their standard file. So you can change that. Type of format, PNG, JPEG, TIFF. There are advantages to doing TIFF, but basically the nice thing about you know I'm on camera, right, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That was my wife, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you saw her. So PNG transparency in the background, so the white becomes transparent. JPEG, solid background. So for the most part, I do PNG. Then you have your preset sizes and your DPI. For most of the stuff that you're submitting to me, you know, 8.5 by 11, 150 DPI is all we need. We don't need to start getting into 4K renderings and stuff like that. Now, under options, this comes down to your video card. Some of you will be able to go to Render Engine and you'll see 3 options. Inherent real-time view, CPU mode, or GPU mode. The difference is GPU stands for Graphics Processor Unit. Now, that there is my graphics card. It is massive. But the reason I have that is because it allows me to do renderings with GPU, which is what SolidWorks loves. So you may have that capability, you may not, and it'll show up in here. The other one is CPU. What that does is it uses your core processors. GPU is considerably faster. And I'll show you what I mean. So my machine is still fast even on CPU mode. But if I come in and I just hit render background, because we got everything set up, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. So this is CPU mode. And you can see it's rendering out. It's not an overly complex scene, not a whole lot of stuff. So 11 seconds. Now, if you have the GPU mode and you switch to that, and we go render in background, wait for it to pop up. There it is. Oh, it's done. That took 0.9 seconds. So you can see there's a difference. Oh shoot, I can't do that for you guys. I was going to say, if you guys have really slow machines, I can always open it up on, well, I can. If there's a point where we get near to the end and you guys have like massive renderings and it's going to take your machine, you know, you hit render and it ties up your machine for 2 hours, 3 hours, what I'll do is I'll get a student license for my pro machine, and then I can do the renderings for you guys, because there's no sense in you guys getting tied up, especially when it comes time to do animations, if you want to do an animation, because if I did this animation and I wanted it to be 1,000 frames, it would take 1,000 seconds. If your machine rendered it in 1 minute, it would be 1,000 minutes. You can see how that can build up time. So all I'm looking for in the end is for the renderings to bring your model in, assign your materials. That's why you need to have a multi-bodied part, so that whatever material or whatever part has a different material, you can assign it. Play with the environment a little bit. Find whatever lighting theme that you like. Adjust your materials to get them how you want, and then do a couple screenshots or a couple renderings. Sound easy? Not nearly as intimidating, or it's considerably less intimidating when someone says, hey, I want you to do that rendering. Because you look at that and you go, oh, that's a nice I can't do that. Well, in less than 3 minutes, I showed you how to get 85% of the way there. Now, the remaining 15% is what makes it look uber realistic. And for all I know, that may be a real unit. I don't think it is because of the background, but it could be. But I can tell that these are not all the same because that one's got like a frosted metal, where these ones have a pure chrome metal on these ones. Sorry, these ones have a clear chrome. Well, that's obviously the real thing because you know how? There's imperfections in it. Rendering imperfections, that's a whole nother level to get it really realistic. That's real. But we can get very detailed as we go down. Everything here, doing steam, doing the water droplets, those are all things you can do in Keyshot. So we can have a lot of fun. What I also want you guys to do is to specifically do a Google search and find renderings that you would like to be able to do. So, 3D rendered models. 3D rendered models, images, product. Let's go with product. So find some things that you're like, oh, I would like to be able to do that. Save them and post them up onto the Workshare. So that what we have is as you guys start going, you've got a benchmark. And that's one of the things where as we dive into the next project, whatever you're going to model up, and this is why I like you guys to pick products, because then it's going to be, okay, here's the image that you use to model up your 3D model. Now this is the image I want you to try to match for your rendering. And then we can go in there and understand, hey, here's a light coming from here. Where do the lights come from? Where's this come from? Because I know you, in your marker rendering classes or advanced Viz Tech, you're taught to about, if I'm going to have a highlight here, I need a light source from here. Well, in the rendering, we actually have to create that light source so it reflects down. Any other questions? Let me actually, oh my lord, oh my lord. Okay.